Have you ever felt like life is just too hard to handle? This is the story of an old woman whose simple advice changed lives, and it could change yours too. A long time ago, in a quiet little village, there lived an old woman. She had silver hair and a face full of wrinkles, but her eyes shone brightly with kindness. Even though she had lived a tough life, she was always smiling and seemed happy. The old woman lived alone in a tiny house under a big banyan tree. She had no children, and her husband had passed away many years ago. Life had not been easy for her, but she never complained. She spent her days sitting under the banyan tree. The villagers loved her because she was always cheerful and helpful. Whenever someone had a problem, they came to her. Her words were full of hope and wisdom, and they made people feel better. Life in the village, however, was not easy. Some villagers were farmers who worked hard in the fields. Others were carpenters or shopkeepers. Sometimes things went wrong. There would be no rain, and the crops would dry up. Other times people would fall sick and could not work. But the old woman always found a way to stay positive. People wondered how she could be so happy when her own life was so hard. One day, a young woman named Julie came to see her. Julie looked tired and upset with tears in her eyes. She sat down under the banyan tree and said, "I don't know what to do. My husband left for the city to find work, but I haven't heard from him in weeks. He hasn't sent any money, and now my children are hungry. I'm scared he has forgotten about us." The old woman looked at Julie kindly and said, "Sit down, my child. Tell me, what do you think will happen?" Julie wiped her tears and said, "I don't know. I keep thinking bad things will happen. What if my husband can't find work? What if he never comes back?" The old woman shook her head slowly and said, "Julie, when you think bad thoughts, you only make yourself feel worse. But when you think good thoughts, you feel lighter. Sometimes good things can happen when you have hope." Julie frowned and asked, "But how can I think good thoughts when everything is going wrong?" The old woman smiled gently and said, "Let me tell you a story about a man who learned how to see the good in life, even when things seemed terrible. Listen closely, my dear." The old woman began her story. He had no money, no food, and no family. He felt hopeless and spent his days sitting by the river, crying about his life. One day, an old woman walked by and saw him. She asked, "Why are you crying, my son?" The man looked at her with tears streaming down his face and said, "I have nothing. My life is empty and I don't know how to go on." The old woman smiled gently and said, "You may feel like you have nothing, but that's not true. Look around you. You have this river, flowing with clean water. You have the shade of these trees. You have the sun in the sky, warming the earth. There is beauty and life everywhere if you choose to see it." The man stopped crying for a moment and looked around. For the first time in days, he noticed the sparkling water of the river and the cool breeze blowing through the trees. He listened to the birds chirping in the distance. The old woman continued, "If you only think about what you don't have, you will always feel sad. But if you think about what you do have, even if it's small, you will feel peace in your heart." The man thought deeply about her words. He realized he had spent all his time focusing on his problems and had forgotten about the small, good things around him. From that day on, he tried to think about the good in his life. Slowly, his heart became lighter, and he began to feel hope again. The old woman stopped her story and looked at Julie. "Do you understand the lesson, my child?" she asked. Julie thought for a moment and then said, "You're saying that when we focus on what's good in our lives, we feel better. But how can I do that when everything feels so bad?" The old woman smiled softly. It's not easy, but it's possible. Start small. Every morning when you wake up, think of one good thing. Maybe it's the love you have for your children. Maybe it's the sunshine or the air you breathe. Tell yourself today will be a good day. When you fill your heart with good thoughts, you'll have the strength to face your problems. Julie nodded slowly. I will try, she said, wiping away her tears. For the first time in days, she felt a little hope growing inside her. The old woman patted her hand gently and said, That's the first step. Positive thinking won't make your problems disappear, but it will make you stronger to face them. And when you're strong, good things will start to happen. Julie left the old woman's house that day with a lighter heart. Her words stayed in Julie's mind. Think good thoughts, and you will feel stronger. She decided to follow the advice, even though her life was still difficult. The next morning, as soon as she woke up, Julie looked at her children sleeping peacefully. She smiled and whispered to herself, Today will be a good day. I will take care of my children and stay hopeful. She worked hard throughout the day. Julie fetched water from the well, cooked with the little food she had, and cleaned her house. She didn't let her worries control her. Instead, she focused on the small good things, like the warmth of the sun on her skin and the laughter of her children as they played. Days passed, and Julie made this her habit. Every morning she repeated the same words, Today will be a good day. Slowly, she began to notice changes in herself. She felt less tired and more hopeful. Even when her children complained about being hungry, she comforted them with love instead of tears. One day, Julie decided to visit the old woman again. She wanted to share how her life had started to feel a little better. When she reached the big banyan tree, she found the old woman sitting in her usual spot, talking to a group of villagers. Julie waited until the old woman was free and then sat beside her. She said, I've been thinking good thoughts, just like you told me. I feel stronger, but sometimes it's still hard. What if things don't get better? The old woman smiled and said, My dear, life will always have problems. But when you think positive, you don't carry the weight of those problems alone. Your heart becomes lighter, and you can face challenges with courage. She pointed to the banyan tree above them. Do you see this tree? It's strong because its roots go deep into the ground. Positive thinking is like those roots. It helps you stand tall, no matter how hard the wind blows. Julie nodded, understanding the wisdom in her words. I think I understand, she said softly. It's not about waiting for life to be perfect. It's about staying strong and hopeful even when it's not. The old woman smiled again. Exactly, my child. You cannot control everything, but you can control how you think and feel, and when you do, you invite good things into your life. Julie thanked the old woman and left, feeling inspired. She reminded herself to focus on the good, no matter how small. She believed that if she stayed strong and hopeful, life would eventually get better. Days turned into weeks, and Julie continued to follow the old woman's advice. Each morning she reminded herself, Today will be a good day. She worked hard, cared for her children, and kept hope alive in her heart. One sunny afternoon, Julie was at the market, selling a few handmade items to earn some money. As she packed her things to head home, a neighbor rushed toward her, holding a letter. Julie, this is for you, the neighbor said excitedly. Julie's hands trembled as she opened the letter. It was from her husband. She read it aloud, her voice shaking with emotion. Dear Julie, I have found work in the city. It has been hard, but things are finally getting better. I am sending money with this letter and will send more every month. Soon I will come back to see you and the children. Stay strong. I miss you all so much. Love. Your husband. Tears filled Julie's eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. Her heart felt light, and she couldn't stop smiling. The money her husband sent would help feed her children and make life easier. She rushed to the old woman's house to share the good news. When Julie reached the banyan tree, the old woman was there, as always, with her kind smile. "What is it, my child?" the old woman asked. Julie held up the letter and said, "My husband has found work. He's sending money, and he'll come back soon. Your advice worked. Thinking good thoughts helped me stay strong, and now good things are happening." The old woman smiled warmly. "You see, my dear, when we fill our hearts with hope and positivity, we create space for good things to happen. Life will always have problems, but a hopeful heart can overcome anything." Julie hugged the old woman and thanked her. She promised to share this lesson with others in the village. Soon many villagers came to the old woman, seeking her advice. She told them all the same thing: think good thoughts, and good will come. Over time, the entire village became more hopeful and happier. The old woman's wisdom had changed their lives. Julie never forgot her words and taught her children to always focus on the good, even when life was hard. This story shows the power of positive thinking and how it can change lives. If you feel stuck or hopeless, try focusing on the good around you, no matter how small. Start each day with hope, just like Julie. What positive thought will you start your day with tomorrow? Share it in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories to help you learn English and brighten your day.